So yesterday, as we got off the air, the story broke about Matt Schembechler coming forward with accusations that he had also been abused by Dr. Anderson. He brought it to Bo. Bo wasn't having it. His mom then took it to Don Canham, the athletic director, and this was when Matt Schembechler was 10. Took it to the athletic director, and Don Canham said, "That's it. We're going to fire him." And then Bo intervened and kept him. Made sure that Canham kept him. Said, "That's my team doctor. We need him." And Canham then relented and kept Dr. Anderson on. There'll be a news conference this afternoon. It's not just Matt Schembechler. There'll be two former players as well speaking at the news conference who said that they are victims of Dr. Anderson. Now, these stories, to talk about them on the air, Gator, you and I have discussed this in the past on and off the air. They're the worst. They're the absolute worst. Mm-hmm. These are when you have any kind of abuse or tragic circumstances where there's some unethical or scandalous behavior to discuss. They're the worst. We are in a position, in something that we have said a bunch on the air, not interested in at all in two things that are at either ends of the spectrum: trying and convicting people on the air and defending the indefensible. Not interested in either of those things. And in this particular case, and in cases like this, and it's going back, where really this started. And I apologize for those of you this is repeat, but it was Duke lacrosse. Boy, was I crushing Duke lacrosse. And then I read the book and heard how it was all part of a political campaign, and the kids for Duke lacrosse were basically scapegoated. They didn't make great decisions, but they didn't do what they were accused of doing.
No, they didn't do what they were accused of doing,
Yes.
but they did not make great decisions.
They did not make great decisions.
And when you say political thing, it was the prosecutor in the case was trying to make a name for himself.
Yes.
Yes.
But that didn't, at the time I didn't know that, and you and I weren't working together at the time, but boy, did we go off on these lacrosse kids, and it was kind of a lesson. And so since then, with Paterno and Nasser and all these other cases, I brought up Duke lacrosse and said, we're not going to try and convict people on the air. And yet the evidence is starting to get overwhelming that we're watching an icon fall. Mm-hmm. And, for people around here that grew up in an era I grew up in, and we grew up in, that are Michigan fans, this is an icon. And, everybody has their flaws, but some are greater than others. And this one's pretty bad. I mean, this one's pretty bad, the accusations here. And, these aren't fun to talk about, but should be talked about, and we obviously will. And what we really want to know and hear from Michigan fans is, how are you processing this? How do you feel? How is it to see an icon where the flaws are on full display and they're awful? The accusations are awful. And Gator, there's a time in my life as a younger person where I'd be really, really emotional about this, but you get to a point in your life where when you have kids and you have, you start to really focus on their life and your priorities change. And, it's not something that impacts me as much as it might have at one point. Because to me, sports heroes and things like that aren't as important to me as they were.
It's a lot more complex now than what it was back when you were a kid and you're just following idols around. This is different.
Yes, people were larger than life when I was younger.
Yeah.
And now, part of it has to do with being in this business too, and you get to meet people and talk, and you realize they're just people, right? They are literally just people.
Well, with this case, I think it's gone from being, I don't know if you trust the stories against the doctor, because there were a few out there and like, whatever, I don't know. I mean, the doctor's not here to defend himself because he died, 15 years ago, whatever it was. But there have been hundreds of people that have come out, hundreds of victims that have said that this is what the doctor has done, and they're all very similar stories. I think that the vast majority of people believe these stories now, but people didn't want to necessarily believe that Bo knew. Now there have been more and more and more stories from victims saying that Bo knew. They did an investigation, and the investigation basically spelled out that there were people that said that Bo knew, and that other administrators knew. And the problem was that nothing was done about it. When his son came out yesterday and made that statement, and then they're going to have the press conference this afternoon, that this happened to him as a 10-year-old boy in 1969, shortly after Bo married his mother. I mean, you start to ask yourself questions of, wow, this happened then, right at the onset of his career at the University of Michigan. I mean, he wasn't there for 10 years. He was just on the job, like going into his first season. And this happens with his own, stepson at the time. And this is as damning a testimony as you can get. It comes from a family member. And I'm sure people are going to be questioning what went on, with the relationship with those two. And maybe it can just be, if there's any, I don't know if they had a good relationship or not.
They didn't.
If they didn't, it'd be hard pressed to understand, or hard pressed to deny that this incident didn't have something to do with it.
Yep.
Because if this kid comes out fresh on the job when Bo takes over at Michigan and says, Dad, this happened to me, or Bo, this happened to me, and nothing happens with it. And then as the story goes that he told his mother went to Don Canham. Canham came over to the house, talked to the kid and Millie, and he says, okay, I'll handle it, and nothing gets done. You can understand why there would be animosity there. But, as always, I say, just let it play out. There are a bunch of sides to a story, and you're going to want to hear it all. But this is damning evidence.
The only thing that I would say...
I should say testimony, not evidence.
The only thing I would say at this point as far as, let it play out is we're getting to a point very soon, and some people will say it should have happened already. I would think that President Schlissel needs to come forward and say something. I would think that the guy in charge of the university should be the face of this.
Well, this pushes it, yeah.
And that he should be out there publicly addressing this. Now, I would hope that in a case of any institution that has something like this happen, that they're being thorough to make sure that they say the right things, that appropriately addresses the victims, the accusations, and what their next steps are. And I would think that would be the only holdup, is to make sure that there is a thorough message and a game plan of how they're going to go after this. But with that said, that should probably happen rather soon.
Well, and they should have. Honestly, Doug, they should have a prepared statement. They should have had one months ago, ready to go when the right time was to release it. This is moving things forward because of the press conference that's going to happen this afternoon. They're going to have to address it, and they have to be thorough, as you said, but they have to be fair, and they have to be respectful. And yet, I wouldn't be surprised if what is said is that something to the tune of we understand and the testimony in light of events that people are waiting for us to say something. Maybe it's as simple as our attorneys have advised us not to say something until this plays out. But you have to be respectful to the victims and what happened. I mean, at the bottom line is that's the first thing you have to show compassion for what happened, because I don't think this is any more of a case of, oh, this didn't happen. Come on, this couldn't possibly have happened. Things happen, and it happened at the university, and you have to address it.